what we found was interesting when we made this story that was really at its core, it was a story about a son looking for his father's approval in Adam, was the fact that we had three men who at the leadership team level who had dealt with these issues, that both Lee and Cliff and myself all lost our fathers either at really early ages. My dad died when he was 38. I was 4 when I lost my dad. So we all had these sort of like repressed kind of issues around dads that we felt like was, again, as a reflection of our creators, it felt like that was kind of being mirrored a little bit in the relationship between Adam and Marcus.
Dad, you should look at this.
No, you look. I warned you not to join the COG. What did you do?
Dad.
I told you, don't go, outsider. The COG will hunt you down. Again, what did you do?
Just shut up and look.
When I think of Gears of War, I think of chainsaws. I think of shotguns. I think of gore.
I know.
But there's another side to Gears, a softer, more story-driven side. From Marcus and Dom's battlefield camaraderie to the many tragic deaths that tugged at our heartstrings, Gears of War has always embraced personal, emotional storytelling. Still, when I interviewed Gears creator Cliff Bleszinski at an event earlier this year, he told me something I never quite expected to hear.
Gears at the core of it all, as much as it's a shooty bro game about, chainsaws and lizard men, it's always been about dad issues.
To hear the series' outspoken creator so openly cite dad issues as the defining theme of the entire franchise was a bit surprising. Not gritty, gory heroism or adrenaline-pumping action, but dad issues. So when I went to visit the Coalition at their Vancouver studio last month to see an early build of Gears of War 4, I kept that in mind. I wanted to find out what it's like to take the reins of a hugely revered franchise and build a team around a project fraught with potentially insurmountable expectations, but I also wanted to ask about what Cliff had said. I wanted to know how Gears, in spite of its bro-y characters and bloody shooting, had become a story about family.
Dad, we need your help.
I'm all done helping you.
And in talking with the team, I quickly discovered the catalyst for both could be traced to the same guy.
I'm Rod Fergusson, and I'm the studio head of the Coalition working on Gears of War 4.
Rod Fergusson has been with Gears from the beginning. In 2005, he actually left Microsoft to join Epic Games and work on Gears full-time. He served as the original game's executive producer, a role he maintained and expanded for the entire original trilogy. So when Microsoft bought the franchise away from Epic and recruited a new studio to create Gears of War 4, Rod was a natural choice to head up the project, even if his future team had no idea what was about to happen.
So before I showed up, it was called Black Tusk. And it kind of been reimagined a couple times as a studio up here in Vancouver. They did free-to-play stuff, and they were working on free-to-play stuff, they were working on Connect stuff. And then they started working on their own IP of a AAA game just prior to my arrival. Phil decided to sign Gears of War, buy it away from Epic, and he was looking for a studio. And at that time, when they were working on their AAA game here, they were working in Unreal Engine 4, so they had about a year and a half of Unreal Engine 4 experience. So bringing Gears here made a lot of sense. And so when I found out about it in December 2013, and I was like, and they were like, "Oh, you're available?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "How'd you make Gears again?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And so yeah, it was pretty interesting because I guess it was a Friday in January, they announced to the studio, "Hey, that thing we've been working on, we're not working on that anymore, and because we got Gears of War." And so they were all excited, and then I showed up the Monday. So they had a weekend to process it before I showed up.
Yeah, I was here day one when we started working on Gears of War, when Rod came and we started talking about the ideas of what the story could be and what kind of enemy factions we wanted to do. Along with that, there was those baby steps at the beginning of the creative process. So I think the first meeting I had with Chuck and Rod was talking about story and what kinds of story Rod was interested in telling and what ideas we had. It progresses pretty quick, when you have a good creative connection and you've got sort of like a fertile property like Gears of War to work from. We started moving pretty quickly into sort of like a skeleton for a story on the wall and discussing different enemies and mission ideas.
As the team found its footing and began to embrace its new role, the time came for Black Tusk to claim a new identity, one that would brand the studio as Gears' rightful home.
And so I felt like Black Tusk didn't have that affinity that I really wanted it to have. And so looked at renaming it and sort of looked at what else could we be. It really felt like I wanted to tie it to the lore, but it still have another meaning to it, and that's what I liked about the Coalition, because there's obviously the Coalition of Ordered Governments from our, our game. When you look at what our studio is, the definition of a coalition is a diverse set of people working on a common task or a common goal, and that's really what we all are.
Fergusson may have been confident in his team, but the Coalition still faced a daunting series of obstacles. Most importantly, they had to figure out how to make a Gears game from scratch, and they had to do it while balancing their own ambitions with fan expectations.
We were worried about was just people not feeling like we were capable of kind of owning the franchise, that we didn't know what it would take to make a Gears game. And so I almost think we maybe, in hindsight, maybe we over-invested in that, in the sense that we kind of played a little bit of defense in the notion of saying like, okay, job number one is do it right before we do it different. We really have to prove ourselves as the Coalition. We really need to respect the franchise and respect the fans. So we want to make sure that what people really feel like, the first thing I want to hear out of their mouth is it feels like a Gears of War game.
Get into cover!
Watch out for the quilt!
Got it! Two more of them!
And we've been working on this project for 3 years, and in the first year it was equal parts creative exploration and sort of like analysis and a whole lot of work that I don't think people know about, where we made sure that as we ported Gears to Unreal 4, that we built tools to make sure that, down to the pixel, the mechanics were working the same as they did inside Gears 3.
In addition to coping with the technical demands of bringing Gears to a new console generation, the Coalition also needed to find a way to inject new ideas without disrupting the classic formula. Major additions like the close cover combat system came together over time, but even smaller details could sometimes be a battle.
If you talk to Kirk, our art director, like Kate's hat is one of them. She was designed without a hat.
What's the story of Kate's hat?
So, Kate was a great character. We all loved her. She actually has a shaved head on one side underneath, and this kind of really cool ponytail, which you do see. And I think we all kind of fell in love with her. And then Rod, I think he was at a cafe and found this girl they thought was very interesting. And
so I was like, I really like that hat. And so I kind of creepily did the I'm using my phone, but I'm taking pictures kind of thing to take a picture of her. And so then I brought it back to Kirk and I'm like, I want this hat. And he was like,
of course, I wanted to accomplish that. And it's not too hard to draw a hat on top of a concept art piece. So we did it. And, and I was a little torn myself.
But then I started hearing murmurs amongst the team that not everybody loved the hat.
Some of the team, kind of revolted against it, and they're coming to me like, Kirk, I don't like the hat. Why did you put the hat? And I go, well, it's something, Rod wants to explore. Let's live with it for a little while.
Another person would come into my office like, are you sure about the hat? And I'm like, why? And he's, oh, no, I'm just a messenger. I'm just hearing not everybody loves the hat. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I really love the hat. So finally I said, look, we're going to bring it to E3. If we get a bunch of pushback, then we can talk about it. But if people accept it, then I'm moving forward.
You know how this little guy starts out?
Trying to stay alive.
True. But if it survives, and most don't, it finds a way to change.
Over time, it's just like a person, that you end up caring about. It really became her. And now, to be honest, I can't imagine her without the hat. That's just so funny.
Through iteration, experimentation, and compromise, the Coalition gradually honed a creative vision for Gears of War 4. And in the process, the team's hard work began to pay off, in some cases sooner than expected.
We were expecting to have to defend a lot more and convince people a lot more and show them like, hey, look, it's a Gears game. But pretty quickly, even early on in some of the first demos, we were getting like, yeah, that's a Gears game. And you're like, oh, wait, you're already convinced? Oh, no.
Don't stop!
And then once we got that and got that reassurance, then we've been pushing the innovation to go like, okay, let's make it new and fresh.
You are walking this very fine line of, well, if you make the game too much like an older Gears game, it feels like you're retreading old ground, but if you stray too far, then you're betraying the franchise.
Yeah.
How do you walk that line? Is it possible to meet fans' expectations?
Well, that's what we're attempting to do, is to walk the line. I talk a lot about the idea of betrayal of expectations, right? Like you need to betray them somewhat, because if you give them exactly what they're expecting, there's nothing interesting. And if you betray them too much, that's not the game they wanted. And so you have to find that line. And that this is our attempt, right? And I think for some people, I hear it already, and some people when they look at, let's take our E3 2016 demo, people go like, some people feel like maybe we're too close to the original. And now that we're bringing robots, I get like, that doesn't belong in the franchise, that's crazy, robots is nuts. So they feel like we've gone on the other side of it. And so with every fan, they have different expectations, about what they want from a Gears of War game. So we're trying to give enough innovation to show that we have places we can go with this and where we want to take the franchise, but we want enough people to feel like we respect what came before and that we understand it and we know how to build it.
With the gameplay coming together and the team learning to reconcile ambition with expectation, Fergusson was finally able to focus on the aspect of Gears that attracted him to the project in the first place.
When Gears 1, 2, and 3, I was in every recording session. I was reading and editing every script. And so there was a part of me that was in that. I was doing, with Josh on Gears 2, we were writing till 8 a.m. to go in at a 9 a.m. recording. There's very active in the process of making those stories.
Games are an art form, something that we're all proud of, that we've put a lot of time into. That it's that time, I think, to where things that a story in a game can last the test of time.
That's why I'm in the games, is to tell stories. And so that's why no studio head should probably be going to LA and doing the voiceover recording for the actors, right? And the fact that okay, everybody, I'm gonna disappear for a week now because I gotta go record voices for a week. Normally that doesn't happen.
The more I learned about the creative process driving Gears 4, the more I realized how much of it was shaped by Fergusson's passion for storytelling. To him, the writing isn't an afterthought. It's not window dressing. To him, the writing is the most meaningful aspect of game creation, in part because it allows him to explore issues that affect him personally.
I like experiences that affect players, and if you walk away, that's why I'm not making match 3 games on my phone. I want something that when you come away from it, you feel something. And when the Maria scene in Gears 2 and at Comic-Con and 2,000 people raised their hands that they cried at it, and the Dom scene in Gears 3. That I'm affecting people to agree that they want to get tattoos on their arms and they're reconnecting with distant family members, and that's what motivates me as a game maker.
Having the ties from the past be not just there as fan service, but being an important part of the story and being something that is crucial to sort of the characters' relationships and exploring themes of family and stuff like that. That was a big deal for us.
What we found was interesting when we made this story that was really at its core, it was a story about a son looking for his father's approval. In Adam was the fact that we had 3 men who at the leadership team level who had dealt with these issues, that Lee and Cliff and myself all lost our fathers either at really early ages. My dad died when he was 38. I was 4 when I lost my dad. So we all had these sort of repressed kind of issues around dads that we felt was, again, as a reflection of our creators, I felt that was kind of being mirrored a little bit in the relationship between Adam and Marcus.
What happened to every contaminated cell on Seraph? It has to.
No, goddammit, I can't lose you again.
I'm glad I was able to see you again, Marcus. Now go and live for me. God! Dad, go. He's gone. He's gone.
We're accustomed to thinking of intimate indie games like Gone Home and That Dragon Cancer as personal explorations, but what if one of the largest AAA franchises of all time was, in part, a way for its creators to work through life-altering trauma, to nurse wounds that may never fully heal? For Rod Fergusson and Gears of War 4, that certainly seems to be the case. Cliff Bleszinski, it turns out, was right all along.
And it's even true now. I'm older now, I'm 48, and I've got a 22-year-old son. My son is the same age as JD, essentially, right? And so the relationship that JD has to Marcus is in some ways, I don't know if I have that kind of an adversarial relationship with my son, but it does make you think more as a creator. I'm not a 20-year-old kid trying to make a game about a 60-year-old man and a 20-year-old son, right? I'm somebody who's actually living through that and knowing what it's like to have a 20-year-old son and the kinds of things that they bring to the table and are thinking about and worrying about. And so it's interesting to see that sort of stuff again. I think all games in some way, whether it's subconsciously or not, are a reflection of their creators.